Happy together in the word Thursday. How are we doing? Happy Thursday. Whew. How's your week going? There is this new like Zoom feature on this computer, and it's very strange to me because like look at this. If you're on the YouTube video. But then when I come back, it takes a while. I know it's kind of crazy. Like this is a little while. How are we? Happy Thursday. Happy Thursday. Um, we have had a fun week. Little bit of a crazy week, but a fun week. We're going to Chicago tomorrow to visit the in-laws, and I'm so excited. They live in Crystal Lake, Illinois, and that is like walking in Crystal Lake in August is some of the best walking you're ever gonna get. So anyways, it's really cool. But I am excited to chat today. I'm excited to get into the word. I'll be honest, this week has been good, hard, all the things in between. It's been a hard work season. I feel like let's just call a spade a spade. Every time I was actually listening to some of my previous podcast episodes, and not because I really don't ever listen to my podcast, but I think that there's some things that was flat, not flacked me, but like people were like, oh, I really liked when you said this, and I was like, oh, I don't even know what I said. So I was going back to listen. And I'm not kidding. I listened to the introduction of like the last three episodes, and all of them were, it's been a hard week. I mean, I'm so sorry for being such a Debbie Downer. Um, y'all, life is great right now because I love my husband. I'm obsessed with my husband. I love the Lord. We're in a really fun season of figuring out what the next 5 years, like what our goals are, what we would love, what we would love to see. And there's a lot that goes into that. And part of that is like getting a house and where we'd want that to happen. We're in an apartment right now, like an apartment style townhome that we're renting, and I love it. I remember when we first moved in after our honeymoon, we have stairs. So we have 2 stories, and I don't know, I wasn't expecting it, but when I saw the fact that I finally lived in a house or a place of my own that like wasn't my parents that had stairs, I felt like I made it. Because for 4 years until I met my husband, I lived by myself in a 1 bedroom apartment and there was no stairs. And so, anyways, I'm excited for that next progression of like what that's going to look like when we actually get our first home together, which is so exciting. And for what it's worth, relationship wise, I had a lot of girlfriends that when they met their husband, they already had a house, or they didn't, like my girlfriends had a house, or one other person had a house, or whatever have you. And I think what's really cool for those of you that's not your story, because it's not me and Hunter's story. Neither of us had a house when we got married, but we're getting to do all these firsts together, and we're getting to figure it out together, which is such a blessing. And I'm not saying that's the best way to do it at all. What I am saying though is like it's so easy to look at what other people have, like, well, man, they already had a house and they already had this, and we're having to figure this out. But also, the gift is like, yeah, we're getting to figure this out together. And you're going to have that, whether that's for like us house hunting right now, or for you, other things of your life. Like, there's always a blessing with the situation God gifted you with. And maybe the very things you're complaining the most about are the blessing that God's like, those other people you're comparing your life to, they're not getting this thing that you got, which is like for us, the opportunity to really like house hunt together and figure out what we like and don't like. I imagine I'm gonna be getting all these DMs from realtors. I'm sure some of y'all are realtors out there. Disclaimer, we are just figuring out what we like. We are not in a purchasing era right now, but yeah, it's been super fun. So that's been going on. But my corporate job's been really tough. And I think that it just point blank, it's been super tough. And I've been wrestling with it a lot. And I think, like I said, two can coincide. Um, and life is just figuring out how to dance the line of all the stuff, whether it be the good, the hard, the not so good, the great, the challenging, the confusing, the uncertain. We're all doing the best that we can, and that's all we can do. That's all we can do. So, okay. Let's get in the word. 17, 15. Then God said to Abraham, as for your wife, you must no longer call her Sarai. Sarah will be her name. I will bless her and will give you a son through her. I will bless her and she will become a mother of nations. Kings of countries will come from her. Ooh, we're going to stop there. One, this is just a side note. So God's a name changer. We've seen that. He changed Abram to Abraham, and now he's changing Sarai to Sarah. He's a name changer. I remember when I got married, a dear friend of mine that I work with who is amazing. You talk about a believer on fire for Jesus in a dark place like corporate America. I think about this dude, and I'm blessed enough to be on a sales team with him. So he's awesome. He called me and he was we were catching up. He was like, "How was the honeymoon? Like how is the wedding?" All this. I was like, "Oh my gosh, it's amazing." And he's like, "Yeah, I'm just curious. Like, are you changing your name?" And I was like, "Yeah, of course. What do you mean by that?" And he's like, "I don't know. Like you just, like you have like a not I hate the platform thing, but like you have books and stuff. Like I just didn't know if for a brand reason if you were going to change your name or not, or if like it would just because you all your books have like people know you as Annie Mayfield, and Annie Morlock is like completely different and confusing. And so I understood his question, but I think it also pointed on something, and we talked about this in our conversation. I remember being in our premarital counseling, and the same thing came up. Like, are you going to change your name? And I was like, yeah, of course. I mean, it never dawned on me that I wouldn't change my name. Granted, I think like when I look at my sphere, my mom, my grandparents, there's no one in my family that didn't change their name. So I never thought anything of it. And then when it came up in premarital counseling, it was like, are you going to do it? All this stuff. And I was like, yeah, of course. And then I remember our couple who I adored, but they were talking about like, do you understand? Like, is that overwhelming for you to think about? Like, are you, and I was like, I honestly haven't really thought about it. And then so I did think about it. And I remember thinking, whoa, I'm like no longer going to be Annie Mayfield. And that really saddened me. It did. It made me sad. I was like, oh my gosh, like I'm no longer going to be Annie Mayfield. Um, that's kind of sad. And then I thought about all the things God's allowed me to do as Annie Mayfield. And I was like, oh, that's kind of sad. Like I'm gonna miss her, you know? But then I'll never forget a really dear friend of mine that I reached out to talk about this. She was like, "You need to grieve. Like you're literally becoming someone new, and this isn't something your husband's gonna have to go through." Like for my ladies that haven't been through the process yet, it's not just the like actual logistics of getting your name changed, which is so annoying and takes forever. Newly Named is a great resource I used, but also just the emotional weight of like, why do I have to lose my name and he doesn't have to lose his? And you can go on this rabbit trail of like, it's not fair. And why am I having to do this, all this stuff? But y'all, what's so cool, and I'll never forget my friend, shout out Lauren Leonard. She told me this. She was like, in the Bible, every single time a name was changed, it was like coined as blessing. It was God honoring someone with a name change. The fact that we as women get that, we get to be in a godly marriage and experience the changing of a name. Going back to literally what I said at the beginning of this podcast, the very things we complain about are often the very things God is blessing us with. It's like the hardship disguises the actual seed of blessing underneath. Changing the name, like guys don't get to go through that. I mean, traditionally speaking, it's reserved for women. And a lot of women are like, "Oh, that sucks. Why do we?" But the other perspective is like, "Whoa, we're honored and graced and blessed with this transition that men aren't." And that's so cool. Like, because the reality of it is, I was Annie Mayfield. But when I became one with my husband in a covenant in marriage, when we said I do on that day, I did change. And God blessed me with the stamp, with the altar, with the reminder of that by my name changing. And it's not like Hunter's didn't change. Like he now has someone under his leadership and that he's leading a family with that bears his name as well. He has more responsibility with this name, as do I, as I bear this name. And so I just, our God is a name changer. And as women, we have the gift of being able to undergo this in a way that like men don't have, which is awesome. And so I want to change that narrative. Like changing your name is a blessing. Like Abram to Abraham, Sarai to Sarah, Simon to Peter, Saul to Paul. Every time a name was changed in the Bible, I'm sure there's plenty more that I'm not remembering or saying, but um every time a name was changed, it was for the next step of blessing that God is putting on your life. Changing your name is not a demotion. It doesn't mean you're less than. It doesn't mean you're yeah, you're small, you're lesser. It doesn't mean you don't hold any weight. If anything, it means like God is literally blessing you with this transformation, with this new, like we go from glory to glory, like with this new avenue of glory, with this new name. So Sarai goes to Sarah. How cool is it too? God says, I will bless her and give you a son through her. I will bless her and she will become a mother of nations. This is the same Sarah now, that told Abram to sleep with Hagar, got ticked off that Hagar got pregnant from her own scheme, sent Hagar away, and didn't trust the Lord's promise that they themselves would have a great nation through them. This is the same her that God is referring to when he says, I will bless her. I almost feel like Abram is sitting there thinking the first time God says it, it's like, are you sure? Do you know what she's done? So God says again, I will bless her. Like the first time it didn't really sink. And you know how we do. It's like, especially with your spouse, you are so aware of their shortcomings more than anyone else. And so I can imagine Abram thinking like, do you know what she's done? Do you know how she is? And notice nowhere here is Sarai in this conversation. Like there was no repentance on Sarah's part. There was no, that we know of. But just in here, what this says to me is that no one can stop God's plans. No one. No one can stop what God has planned for them, because whatever God has planned, it's like that verse in Genesis we will get to eventually, where with Joseph is like, you meant it for evil, but God meant it for good, so that many people may live and not perish. God's plans are invested in so many people than just you. He might work through you to deliver them. He says in Genesis 17:16, I will bless her and will give you a son through her. So Sarah had a blessing on her life and through her life. So many of us, we think blessing is just about what's on us. We want it to end with us, but we never ask the question, God, how do you want to be a blessing through me? Two different questions. One is, how do you want to bless me? How can you bless me? The other is, how do you want to be a blessing through me? One is focused on me. The other is focused on all the other people that God can use me to bless. One is a cul-de-sac kind of blessing. It stays right here. The other is a conduit kind of blessing. Help me be a conduit of blessing to the people around me. And we are called to be conduits of blessing, not cul-de-sacs of blessing. Kind of like that. So we see here, even though Sarah, all she could think is, I want a baby, God was using that desire to fulfill what was going to be a blessing to nations. She was going to be a mother of nations, plural. Kings of countries, plural, will come from her. Second or third point. God's plans are so much bigger than your plans. It's so much better than your plans. It's so much greater and so much wider and so much deeper and goes so much further than your plans. And there's so much more fulfilling than your plans. Sarah wanted a baby. She wanted a baby. She wasn't asking for kings of nations to come from her. She wanted a child. God wanted to birth a nation from her. Sarah wanted one. God wanted many. I was talking to a friend on Sunday at church. I'm doing guest services now. It is so fun. So I was talking to a friend. Her name's Patty. She's fabulous. We were just chatting. She was telling me about her daughter, who's my age, and all this stuff. And she was telling me about some stuff going on in her life. And I was like, it was all kind of along the theme of like, I'm struggling with not getting my hopes up. Like, I feel like every time I get my hopes up, I get let down by God. And I was like, I can relate to that because, I'm a writer by trade. I love to write. I'm very creative. Hunter says one of the things he loves most about me is my creativity and my imagination. But if you have a big imagination, you can also relate to the fact that it's your greatest asset and it can also be your greatest source of destruction. Because you can imagine really great things. You also can imagine awful things. And you can imagine like the worst case scenarios happening. Works both ways. So for me, again, big imagination, I'm very guilty of writing stories for God before he's written them. So like, let's take work right now. For example, I'm in a really hard season of work and it's been probably my hardest season. I've been in corporate America for 6 years. My next book is about being the light in corporate America and holding on to your faith while you're in corporate America because it can be a dark place. And I'll just be blank. Is that the word? No, blunt. I'll be blank and blunt. In 6 years, I have never in my life experienced as hard of a season as I have the past 2 months in my job. For various reasons. Some stuff came up and I was getting so excited about it because in my mind, I was seeing light at the end of the tunnel. And I was right. You know how we do. When we see light at the end of the tunnel, I started writing God's story for him before it planned out. And then guess what? It didn't work. Or not that it didn't work, but it didn't happen the way I wrote it in my head. And all of a sudden, I was disappointed with God for not doing the thing that I thought was awesome and for his glory, literally. Like, I remember this is just a great example. Well, I don't want to get this example because, I don't want to get this example, but just I was what I had in mind, the story I was writing, it wasn't just like, oh, this would be great for me. It was also like, this would be such an awesome testimony if this worked out this way. We can make it spiritual, is what I'm saying. Like, I was like, oh yeah, this would be really cool if God did this for me, but also this would be a really awesome testimony I could see myself saying on the Night to Shine podcast. Like, I was making it spiritual all day. And I was convincing God, like, God, this would be like, take notes. I'm coming up with a really good story for you to write. And when you like when you begin to think you like know what God's doing, but then when it doesn't happen, I go from like way up here to just really sad. And that happened to me multiple times in the past 2 months. And it kind of felt like whiplash, like and even now, it's like every day, it's like, oh wait, what? And I was telling my friend Patty, I was like, what I realized though is it's not about me not getting excited when I think I see God or when I think I'm putting the pieces together. What it is when it doesn't happen the way I wanted, it's simply changing the object of my trust. Did I trust God to the extent that he would follow the writing I thought was best for me? or do I trust that God is the ultimate author? So if I was that excited about my version of the story, how much more excited can I be about God's version when it comes to pass? And so the fact, like, I almost use my excitement as evidence of how good it's going to feel when, like, God actually does what he's going to do, because what God does is always better than what we could do for ourselves. Always. And here we see Sarah wanted a baby, but God wanted nations. Sarah wanted a child, but God wanted countries. God's plans are always better for you. And guess what? You can't mess him up. And I think this stunned Abram when he realized this. Like, I'm just putting myself in Abram's shoes. It's like, Sarah, the girl that came up with the crazy scheme, my wife, and I mean, I'm no better. I'm not pointing fingers, but like, you're going to use her still? You're still going to use her? Because in 17 it says, then Abraham bowed down with his face to the ground. Can a son be born to a man as 100 years old? Can Sarah bear a child at the age of 90? Like, this tells me that there is a part of Abraham, I guess we can say that now, that gave up on God's dream. Because he says this right here. Like, okay, you keep saying this, God, but I'm 100. Sarah's 90. And they didn't, I mean, obviously they didn't know much about like ovulation and cycle phases at this point, or like, menopause, but one can assume. And Abraham's like, this shows me, Abraham, have you ever had a dream and a promise from God, but so much time has gone by and you've gotten your hopes up so many times that you never actually told God you're angry or upset or that you've stopped hoping? You just kind of numbed it out and shoved it down and just, okay, God, sure. You're going to make a great nation out of me. Great. But then God meets him and he tells him again. I almost feel like Abraham's like, okay, you told me I was going to be a great nation, but now I'm looking at my wife suffering and I'm okay getting my hopes up, but stop getting my wife's hopes up. Like, you know how sometimes it's like we're willing to advocate for our loved ones before ourselves. And I almost feel like, I mean, again, this is me ascribing motive. I don't know here, but I'm just trying to put myself in Abraham's shoes. And it's just interesting that it wasn't until God brought up Sarah that Abraham said, but can this actually happen? Can a son be born to a man 100 years old? Sarah's 90? It's like, okay, you told me all these things. I've played along. I believed you, and then I got my hopes let down. But like now, I see my wife suffering. So let me just call a spade a spade. I'm 100. She's 90. Almost like I don't know how much more we can take. Is this promise actually going to happen? And God says, no. Oh, wait, sorry. Abraham said after that, Abraham said to God, oh, that Ishmael may live before you. What does that mean? What does it mean when Abraham said, oh, that Ishmael? Okay. Ooh, this is interesting. So Ishmael, remember, is Hagar's son, the one that represents like manipulation, of trying to manipulate ways into God's promises. When Abraham says to God, oh, that Ishmael might live before you is a Hebrew idiom for like, may he have your favor and divine recognition. So Abraham's saying, God, I'm too old. Can you please recognize Ishmael as the divine covenant son? And God says no. So remember, and this is where we live in a day and age where everyone believes there's like a lot of people, I won't say everyone, a lot of people believe there's one God and there's multiple ways to God, right? So I've heard people in high school and college, just because they're curious, they ask me, like, okay, yeah, but like Muslims and people who like Islam, the religion, they believe in God and we believe in God as Christians. So like it's all kind of the same thing, right? And it's not. It's not the same thing. Jesus says, I am the way, the truth, and the life. Not I am a way, a truth, and a part of life. He says the way. There's only one way. And here we see, so the religion Islam comes from the line of Ishmael. They believe Ishmael is the rightful kind of covenant heir because he was the firstborn of Abraham. Here, we literally see that Abraham petitions for that before he has Isaac. He's like, God, please put your favor on Ishmael because it's not happening. I'm old. Sarah is old. And God literally says, no, nope, not going to happen. This shows us in the Bible that the beliefs that come from Islam, believing Ishmael is the right heir, they don't ring true in terms of believing that he's the rightful heir to the covenant of God through Abraham. That's not what our Bible says. God says, no, Sarah is going to bear you a son, and that will be Isaac. And as Christians, as Christ followers, Jesus came through that lineage. And that's what we believe. So God said, no, Sarah, your wife, is going to bear you a son, and you will name him Isaac. What is Isaac? Isaac means he will laugh. You will name him Isaac. I will confirm my covenant with him as a perpetual covenant for his descendants after him. As for Ishmael, I have heard you. I will indeed bless him, make him fruitful, and give him a multitude of descendants. So, okay, that's prophecy right there. Obviously God's prophetic. He knows everything. That's God saying, I've heard your petition on Ishmael, and I'm so good of a God, he will have multitude of descendants. Y'all, look at the two top competing religions in the world. It is like Christianity and it is Islam. This started in the Bible. In Genesis, God said, I'm not changing my covenant. It's not going to be Ishmael. It's been Isaac. It's always been Isaac. Because I'm not going to let you believe you can manipulate your way and control your way into my promises. My promises are freely given. They're grace given. But I've heard your petition. You love your son Ishmael. I will bless him and make a great nation from him, which God did. Which God did. Or God allowed. He will become the father of 12 princes. I will make him into a great nation, but I will establish my covenant with Isaac. So again, it's not saying Ishmael isn't real or no, it's real. It's historical. It's just the covenant with Isaac is where, well, Isaac is where God's covenant is. So Isaac, with whom Sarah will bear to you at this set time next year. So don't you love? God's like, I'm going to do this, but it's not going to happen right away. You've been waiting all this time, but you're going to wait another year. When he finished speaking with Abraham, God went. Did God wait in this 17? I'm curious about something. So I think this is what I was just curious. It's like, why wait a year? Why not just say, like, okay, and now go have Isaac? So in 17, it said Abraham bowed with his face to the ground and laughed as he said to himself, can a son be born to a man like me? there was still some things God was working out in Abraham's heart. This is actually interesting, and I'm going to end with this. On Sunday, like I said, we were volunteering at guest services, and the guy that runs the groups at our church, we were talking to him. We were talking about parenting. And, because his daughter was going off to college, and we were just asking him about how that is. And he's like, the greatest parenting advice I have is like, the best parents are the ones that have worked out their own stuff. Like they're not trying to fix their kid. They're trying to really work on themselves. And that is the healthiest gift you can offer your kid, is doing the work yourself. I think God knew Abraham had some work to do before Isaac came. And God was gifting Abraham that time. Going back to the beginning of this podcast, the things we often complain about the most, like right now, I've been complaining a lot about my job. I just have. I'll be honest. I've been complaining a lot. It's been super hard. I've been really upset and hurt. And I've been wanting to just hit the eject button of like, okay, I don't mean like, you know what I mean? It's like mentally, you're like, I just want to mentally eject. And what I know in moments where I'm a little bit more sober-minded is God, it feels like he's allowing these awful things to happen, but also I think what he's doing is he's allowing certain things to, as a gift, to expose what these things, like what's been inside me that I need to heal and that I need to release and surrender my control, perceived outcomes, whatever it is. So for you today, if you're in a season where you're like, I don't know why God still has me here, I don't know why I keep getting my hopes up, all stuff, it might not be a bad thing. It could actually be the best thing for you. Abraham needed time to mature before Isaac. And not mature, but just honestly learn how to unbecome everything that wasn't just fully rested and surrendered into the Lord. Sometimes when nothing's happening on the surface is when God is doing the deepest things inside us that need to take place in order to best be equipped to handle and steward the things that would come from the surface. Abraham was about to be the father of Isaac, which would give birth to a multitude of nations and eventually the nation of, those that believe in Jesus Christ. He needed to be ready by definition of fully in surrender of the fact that God is above biology, timelines, and expectations. And I don't know about you, but I need more time. I need a class in that. And luckily, I think that's going to be my entire life, is just a class and how to remember. Lisa Turker says, God is good, God is in control, and God is good at being God. Lord, that's my prayer for everyone today, is that we remember you are good, you are in control, and you are good at being God. Amen. Hey friends, thanks so much for tuning in to the Made to Shine podcast. If this podcast has blessed you, or you're thinking of that person in your mind that think this podcast could also bless, I have 2 asks for you, which are completely free on your end. 1, if you will hit subscribe, helps me out a ton, helps me get this message that I am so passionate about to more people out there. And 2, if you thought of that one person, this happens to me all the time listening to podcasts, send it to them, send it to that person that you think that this will bless. God bless you. God bless your ministry and your light, and sending you so much love.